Good morning, Yasha Allah, and all the diaspora, and good morning, world. Today we bring to you our lesson in the name of the Most High Yahweh and the Blessed Son, Mashiach, the King of the 12 tribes, Yasha Allah, and in the Blessed Ruach. So in love, I greet you, Yasha Allah, and to the nations. Yes, we bring you a word at the command of our Father. The lesson today is the continuance of development we're continuing to develop the understanding of the 400 years situation. We're developing this theme in view of the fact that in Bereshith, or Genesis chapter 15, is stated the notable prophetic utterance of 400 years enslavement of the 12 tribes. And it is no doubt in my mind, from the point or place that I am able to view the unfolding of the 400 years prophecy. And with that view, it is my duty, under the command of our kingdom governor, the Father's Ruach, under his command, to bring forth a proper understanding of matters pertaining to this 400 years that has puzzled the whole world for a long time. We were looking last time at the matter of the development of the photographic principle, if you will, of the 400 years prophecy, if you will, with regards to the principles, both those that are behind the scenes and those that are exposed to the physical action of humanity in bringing to pass the utterances of the prophecy. For instance, then, we want to show you, first of all, as we explained to you, that the kingdom of Esau, that stolen kingdom of birthright that was offered only to Yaakov, Esau having despised it and threw it away and turned around to lay claim to it and fight for it, even to the point of today's development of nuclear powers to aid him, to aid Esau, the children of Esau, who are commonly called white man today. You see the efforts to hold on to the stolen property. By, I guess I can use Malcolm's word, by any means necessary. And in the words of Arthur Koestler in his book, The 13th Tribe, he poses the view that to expel the thieves that call themselves Jews, children of Esau, who wanted to have that despised birthright, wanted to have it under their command and their charge. And so the historical records show that according to the prophetic declaration, they did the stealing and have, in the face of the factual evidence that in Hamashiach, our king, whom Rome, the leader of all the kingdoms of Esau, Edom, in spite of the fact that Rome leaves on record Esau's historical development into his trek that shows the obvious result of his involvement in the prophetic, that shows, whereas the Most High offered him birthright in Bereshith, in the book of Bereshith, whereas Esau was offered birthright, he despised it and threw it away, and turned around as a serpent, and get this, under the will of the hidden power. Remember now, there are two hidden powers, hidden from physical view. And these powers are the Almighty Creator of heaven and earth, as is shown throughout the scriptures to be Yahweh and his blessed one, the one altogether lovely, the Mashiach, and the blessed Rawak. And the other power is that of the entity that prevailed over our forefathers, or our forefather and his woman, his wife, Hawa, or is regularly called Eve, in the Garden of Eden. You remember the story, I think, and the confrontation between Gadriel, the fallen, usually called Satan, the confrontation between him, Satan, Gadriel, and our forefather, Adam, that through his wife yielding to the invitation of Satan, she allowed Satan to come into the relationship. And the scripture in Bereshith chapter 3 shows this situation of the confrontation between Gadriel, Satan, and our forefather, that is, and his woman, Hawa, Eve. Scripture shows that she, through her lust, she gave or provided an opening for the envy of Satan that is expressed in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2 and verse 23, I believe it is. Shows she allowed by her action, through her lust for power over her man, over our forefather Adam, her lust for power allowed her to throw away the kingdom or the governance and rulership of the earth by bringing Gadriel into the relationship. And the mode of entrance into the earth, or the manner by which Gadriel gained his entrance into our world, was through the entering into the physical being of the woman first, as is shown in Bereshith chapter 3, that once the woman bit into the fruit that was shown to her as being something so good, precious, scripture says that she saw that it was good, pleasant, and to be desired. She bit into it and brought about the fall of man, because our forefather, out of love to her, offered himself to be trapped by the scheme of Gadriel. And so we have been brought into a state of fallingness, which in obvious terms, according to what we see happening in the world, in the earth, means that the fall meant the relinquishing of authority over the earth in the mandate of the Most High to Adam, that showed him, explained to him his authority and power to have control and direction in the development of the development of the earth itself and the development of his 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 rule under the authority that was given to him by the Most High to have dominion over the earth in every way, under the authority of the Most High, in the rule of Torah. And so we see that the man, both the man and the woman, their eyes were open, and the opening of their eyes meant that Satan, the spirit of anti-obedience to Torah and the Most High, entered into the being of man, into our first mother. She was first, and then Adam. So the total rulership over the earth was turned over to Gadriel, to Satan. And what we are learning of in this offering of the sealing time, we are offering the view, or we're offering the knowledge of the redemption of man to be reinstated in that position of authority and dominion over the earth and its resources. Of course, then, with great anticipation, we look, with rapt attention to the story of the redemption that was pronounced again in Bereshith, with the proclamation of the Most High Yahweh that he was going to do something to upset the balance in the relationship between the woman, first of all, but in total, the relationship of man with Satan. He's going to upset that balance and bring correction to the problem of the fall by producing the one that would create the very one, I think I could say, the one that would guarantee and reset and rulership in the earth as was originally intended to be. That Gadriel, Satan, in the form of a serpent, got to gain this authority, rule of the earth, because of our first mother's disobedience. And the declaration of the intention of the Most High to restore the original order is expressed in the words, I will put enmity between you and the woman. That's in Bereshith. What's the scripture? 3 and 17, somewhere there, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. It shall bruise your head, and you bruise the heel. And so, in this matter of the sealing, we have examined, or we have been examining the results of the fullness of the development of the issues concerning the fall of man. We have been examining the ascension of Esau, who was first offered birthright in the book of Bereshith, birthright to the sons of Jacob. Yes, Jacob, those sons being Esau and Jacob. You say Jacob, right? We have the pointed observation that Esau didn't want it, threw it away. In fact, the scripture says he despised it. I think that's Bereshith, maybe 31, 32, somewhere in there, wherever. Esau despised it, so it was obviously passed on to Jacob, or Jacob. Whereafter Esau, who despised it, gave it up, turned around in his own mind and thinking to take back what he had given away, what he had despised, that had now become the property of Jacob, whose mission then became to produce and bring forth a progeny, bring forth one that would take the burden of ensuring that the earth would be returned to its original order in terms of submission to the Torah of the Most High, so that man would be also brought back to his place of dominance, if you wish, over the earth and its resources. And thus, with Esau out of the way, as far as the birthright was concerned, or is concerned, the burden became the principal need of the birthright offering, which was the production, the coming forth of one who would restore the order of the Most High in the earth and receive the inheritance of ownership of the earth and to rule over all matters concerning the earth and its resources. this privilege, this right had to be gained by overcoming the foe who gained possession of authority in the earth through the fall that happened with the first woman, our first mother, and her husband. And so the principal offering of the birthright was to bring forth a son who would have the government of the earth, the world, upon his shoulders, according to the book of Isaiah. And to us, the son is born, child is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. This one was one born in the house of Abraham. Of course, he was the great grandfather of both the sons, Esau and Jacob. So we put Esau to the side because he despised that birthright. He didn't want it. And he turned around now to fight for the inheritance of the birthright that was won as opposed to lose. Mashiach won the right and authority to have the governance of the earth, because there was an all-out battle that ensued in the processes of history, in the proceedings of history and national development in the earth through the people that were born under Adam and Hawa. All these people were born in sin or subject to the intervention of the smooth operation and running of the earth, of the world, by the entrance of Gadriel, the fallen one, and his fallen ones with him, by their access into the body of man, of humanity. So all those nations we read of in the beginning of Bereshit, Genesis, all these nations were subject to the determination of Gadriel to have domination over the earth, because the entrance into the body of man was gained when the eyes of both Hawa and Adam were opened. So all nations that were born, all people that were born and formed nationhood, were under the rule of Satan. And this, the principal offering of the birthright that had been passed on to Yaakov, this was upon the shoulders of the Mashiach, born into the cradle of the 12 tribes whom Yaakov produced, who were indeed the cradle wherein the Mashiach, to redeem the earth out of Satan's clutches, out of his hold, Mashiach was born within the nation of the 12 tribes. And then we look at the envy of Gadriel, Satan, in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, and we see how that envy translated into an absolute, well, not absolute, but a determination to corrupt the order of authority in the earth, because he had gained an entrance in the eyes of Adam, of Hawa and Adam were open. So all the nations of the earth were subject to Satan's domination, as far as the Most High would allow. The man, because of the disobedience of the woman, gave his hand to allow Satan to have rulership in the earth. And the principal offering of the birthright unto Jacob, or Yaquab, was to bring forth the Messiah that would buy back the earth itself and the authority to govern it, buy it back by the Mashiach. And the birthright then that fell to Jacob, that the Mashiach would bear the responsibility for this birthright now by theft again, by theft of Esau, who committed himself to Gadriel, to Satan, the fallen one, committed himself unto Satan to play havoc upon the birthright offering. This is the history of the world as we know it, and as we ought to know it. And so Esau, remember his statement. What good will birthright do to me? Because I'm so hungry, I'm going to die. So you have that birthright thing. You have that, and that was it. He gave it up. Now these actions of Esau and Jacob were recorded in the annals of eternity by the Most High, who created the heavens and the earth, and who in fact gave the order unto Abraham, who was father of both, the grandfather, yes, of both Esau and Jacob. And so this birthright offering turned into a dispute because of Esau seeing the prospect of what Jacob would gain. Somehow he had, well, in fact, it comes out to an open knowledge that Esau's hunting trips led him into communication with Satan, Gadriel, and the fallen ones, whereby he hatched his plan to subvert and take the gifts and blessing of the birthright that was won by the Mashiach through an all-out battle with the entire arsenal of Satan, Gadriel, and Esau that was committed to him. The Mashiach won the battle according to Esau's Roman declarations that the Mashiach was crucified, died, and was buried, and rose from the dead, victorious over his foes. Who were his foes? Gadriel and Esau, who despised the birthright. but wanted, the provisions of the birthright. That was the land of Yasha'Allah. They call today, across the waters from where I'm sitting. They call, in bastard terms, the land of Israel, where Esau sits as ruler. According to the principle of war, whoever wins the war has the spoils and becomes the ruler. Isn't that right? That's a regular understanding of what happens in war. Mashiach won the war in the battle with the prince of darkness, the ruler of darkness, Satan himself, and the nation that yielded itself to him. Mashiach won the battle. And it is so stated in the annals of the history of Rome that Mashiach rose the third day, having become victorious, according to the book of Colossians, over all principalities and powers. And yet, the battle continues because of Satan's promises to Esau that he would gain or take hold of the provisions of the birthright that was committed to Yaakov and the offspring of Yaakov that became the Mashiach of Yasha'Allah, who had that battle at Calvary when the children of Esau, the Romans, put forth their hand with all fury to crucify him with the help of Levi. I ain't going to leave that out. The help of Levi, Esau had a moment of victory that is so stated in the annals of history. But the resurrection of the Mashiach dissipated all the hopes and the claims. Esau again redoubled his effort to gain control of the provisions of the birthright that had to be won by an all-out, unprecedented war effort on the part of the Mashiach, a war that had never been fought before and never will again be fought. Well, maybe I have to restate because the show ain't over yet. I mean, Arthur Kessler's book, 13th Tribe, presents a view that Esau intends to fight to the death to have authority over the land. That was won, if you want to use the word fairly and squarely, that was won by the Mashiach in triumph over Rome. And their crucifixion of him, the Mashiach, and their interment of him in the tomb for 3 days and 3 nights. And he rose victorious over all of it, all the brutalization that they put upon him, and the authoritative command of the Prince of Darkness, Satan himself, involved in the exercise. The Mashiach overcame all of that and rose up, come out of the grave. And so what we are dealing here is with the fact of Rome and Esau being the production of the seed of a marine kingdom. Remember, the fall of the evil one from the Shamayim resulted in a portion of the fallen hosts that were under the command of Satan, Gadriel, who is called God in our Bibles, our regular Bibles. They put him as God in the scriptures to create the original stance of idolatry within the nation of the 12 tribes. And Esau's seductive methodology of gaining prominence concerning the birthright issue, whereas now he has been proclaimed, the ruler of the land. That is in the birthright blessing, whose authority is rightfully owned by the one who was victorious in the battle of death and in the obtaining of victory, the resurrection. All right. So as a marine kingdom, then, we find the historical evidence of Esau's ascension to power, as I had been showing you by the help of the Ruah. First of all, I'm going to show you that the division of the kingdom of darkness, the kingdom of Satan, or let me back up a little bit and say the division of the fallen ones after being thrown out, kicked out of the Shamayim, out of heaven, was basically like this. A contingent of the fallen ones stayed up in the heavens, and they, dwell among the the constellations and so forth in the starry heavens. They stay there. Today, they are called aliens and are much sought after. In fact, it is stated in Esau's documentation concerning his rulership in the earth today, that his kingdom, or his fellow comrades in the kingdom, are fellows from the stars. This is plainly admitted in Esau's own words. I had nothing to do with it. But I'm showing you the division of those who fell out of the heavens, or the Shamayim. Some stayed in the constellations. And some came on earth, on the surface of the earth, and through their works, through their interaction with man after the fall, they set up the worldly governments that we have learned of. Nimrod and all of them were responsible for setting up the worldly governments under the rule of Satan. These were humans that were born out of the union of the fallen pair, Adam and Hawa. But again, in the fall of Gadriel and his host from the Shamayim, portion stayed up in what we call the starry heavens, in the constellations. Another portion came to the earth on the surface of the earth and lived amongst men and set up those old regimes, those kingdoms that were ruled over by what the scriptures call mighty men, you know? And then the other portion of them were committed themselves to the marine kingdom. So that's three basic divisions. It might be a little bit different as than I am describing it now, but the principal manner in which they were divided, or they divided themselves, as we see in the book of Hanok. They were in the constellations in the heavens. They came on earth and set up nations, or through men, through the opening of the eyes. The nations that formed after the fall, most of them lend themselves to the rule of Satan, Gadriel, and the fallen ones. And of course, the others committed themselves to the marine kingdom, inhabiting and living in the waters, in the caves and deep places of the sea, of the earth. So there you have it. Esau, Edom, who is the product of Grecians that came to prominence under the rise of Philip of Macedonia, and his son Alexander, whose generals made their trek into Mizraim, into Egypt, and learned the principles of enslavement, whereby Esau took control of that knowledge that we see exhibited in the Zohar of today's Jewish, who are the children of Esau. And in the Zohar is explained the principle whereby Esau conducted enslavement of the 12 tribes and of the house of Yahweh. They outline the process of brutality that was needed to gain and maintain subjection over a people, the people of Yasharahla. And therefore, where we are today, or where we have come, was courtesy of the transatlantic slave trade, but the method was provided for by the authority of the marine kingdom. Remember the story of Greece, how there was so many sailors and mariners, we call them, and you remember what seemed like fairy tale, the involvement of the Grecian or the Greek mariners with let's say gods, the gods that they met with, that came out of the sea and had relations with them, and different expressions concerning kingdom rule was shared by the marine kingdom with Esau, the Grecians, the Greeks, who after their fellowship with the marine kingdom took to being mariners, sailors and so forth. And they use the method of ships as the scriptures declare to gain ascendancy over the 12 tribes and bring them into slavery and to do their work, their will upon them, according to prophecy in Bereshith that made our forefather Abraham so horrified when he saw the brutality that would be exercised upon his children. I mean, the children that became those that maintain allegiance to the Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, as opposed to those who gave their allegiance to Satan, Gadriel, and all the fallen ones. So, again, we highlight the fact that the method of enslavement of the tribes was the work of the marine kingdom. And Esau, under the Grecians, became mariners. They worked the seas. And in that mode, in that method, they used the ships that are mentioned in Devarim, in Deuteronomy. It was by ships that they made their conquests to bring forth the reality of the prophecy in Bereshith. That is restated in Deuteronomy chapter 28, that the children of Yashar'allah were brought into captivity in ships. That was Esau's mode of conquest over the 12 tribes under the rulership of Satan. So we have today understanding how we were brought into slavery. We now understand that it was the work of the marine kingdom, of those who fell from the Shamayim and went into the seas, they harbored the seas and the oceans, who provided kingdom knowledge to Esau and was successful in the shipping industry to bring the 12 tribes into captivity, and has continued with that rule and the ordering of that rule under Satan to have a certain amount of dominance, showing kingdom power, to dominate the earth and have it under their rule in opposition to the covenant that they rejected, as he saw in the scripture. So Satan told them that he could get the kingdom for them. No sweat, no worry. and he's done I guess I could say, an excellent job. According to his view, he's done excellent. But when we look at the seal now, the sealing of the 12 tribes, and we look, well, a little bit further back at the conclusion of Satan's and Esau's experiment, or Satan's experiment through his people, Edomites, marine kingdom builders, by ships. Remember? That's how Yashar'allah came into captivity under Satan and Esau. And so we are now at the point where the contest for the kingdom has come down to this, to the sealing of the tribes, of the 12 tribes of Yasha'Allah. And we're going to learn a little bit further on what the number is, the number of the tribes that will be sealed. We're going to learn. It's far different than what Esau has put into the scriptures to infect our mind and our consciousness concerning the work of Mashiach. And so the conclusion of the 400 years, as we were showing you earlier, with respect to the work of Esau under Satan, what they intended to accomplish as a matter of having governance in the earth, what Satan intended to accomplish was the obvious achievement of stamping his image on humanity. Well, let's look at Ezra's, 2nd Ezra's 6 and 9, I think it is. It says that Esau is the end of the world, and Yaakov is the beginning of it that follows. We say again that Esau's kingdom was built upon the order of the marine life and the marine dwellers, Satan, demons, that crew specifically, who inhabit the waters. They were the ones that built the ships to bring Yasha'Allah into captivity. And now you know the secret behind the enslavement by ships. We were showing you earlier the Great Seal of the United States as the Marine Kingdom builder of Esau. We see the Great Seal. You see a copy of it here. Can you see it? I think you know of this already. The Great Seal of the United States. That's the first side. And then we have the other side, the flip side of it. The Great Seal of the United States. Marine Kingdom. Esau's Marine Kingdom. Expression of their power. And we have the official power, the principal origin of the kingdom of Esau, showing who was all the while interested in having governance of the earth according to the fall that ensued by the rebellion of our first mother and then our father too, both of them falling from grace and from kingdom rule in the earth by this one that you're looking at. Home in the 400 years enslavement, the brutality that Esau perpetrated on the 12 tribes was to get the formation of this image in the hearts and minds of the 12 tribes, to imprint this image on their psyche, on their DNA. That was the work of the 400 years enslavement, to bring forth this, that, I mean, should there have been an ending that sees, or that would see Gabriel as victor over the cosmos, the citizens would look like this. And this is what shows the expression of Esau's determination to subdue the 12 tribes, because he wanted to help his father, Gabriel, Satan, produce this image. This is what you are to become, Yasha Allah. This is what the fight was about, that you become this. And this is what Mashiach died to save you from. And of course, we are shown in the scriptures that even though we have borne the image of the earthly, we have borne this image in the various ways it is brought forth out of us as a people. Some of us are at different points along the way expressing this image. But as we have borne the image of the earthly in Mashiach, we should also bear the image of the heavenly, because of the work of Calvary, of the crucifixion. The Most High has earned the legal rights, as the way to put it. It's a government type of statement. Esau is a government under Satan, his lord, his chief leader. And so they were intent in bringing forward the principle of the Zohar, which was taught or which was committed to them in Mitzrayim. This is what Mitzrayim was worshiping. For those who want to promote the Sephirothal tree, this is the hidden expression of the Sephirothal tree. This is where the what do you call it, the oracle of the Sephirothal tree was this. That is what it is. This is who ruled in the Sephirothal tree of Mizraim. And Esau, being who he is, was not able to duplicate it. He didn't have the knowledge. But he produced something called the Ouija board that has the effect of allowing Esau to contact this and receive information and knowledge from this and all that are associated with this. Look at it, Yashala. Look at the image that you were supposed to portray after 400 years of brutality, enslavement under Esau. This is the goal. This is the picture of the goal that the Mashiach saved us from. So having already borne the image of the earthly, of our fallen parents, and the subjection of the satanic marine kingdom of Esau. This was the goal, to bring this forth. This is what the lynchings and the murders, the breaking of bones, the destruction of families, and all that you know happened in the 400 years enslavement processes. This was the goal, to produce this. And this was in the mind of the Mashiach when he went to Calvary. He understood this, but we were not ready to receive it. And so you had that lull in the historical processes where it seemed like nothing too much was happening after the crucifixion, it seemed like everything went quiet because the Most High had to wait to allow the effect of the crucifixion to bring out this from Gadriel and Esau. They had to finish developing this. The fight or the principal the principal battle that was fought to produce this was fought in Jerusalem with the crucifixion of Hamashiach. And so the Mashiach, the Most High, had to allow time for Gadriel and Esau to develop this, that it might be available to us, that we would see what it is the Mashiach died. I mean, a part of what it is that the Mashiach died to save us from, so that he may have us to bear the image of the heavenly, himself being the visible image of the invisible Yah. So he had to give time, Yahshua, for this to be developed. And you and I can now look at it. Before, it was kind of dismal, in our understanding of what really was the result of the crucifixion, and what really were the principal issues at stake. Wherefore the Mashiach made that sacrifice. Wherefore the Most High, Yahweh, made that sacrifice to send his beloved, Kansel Kosh Taba, the only begotten, into the world to secure the rightness of fellowship with the Most High, and to have the ability to express the will of the Most High concerning the governance of the earth that the Mashiach came to represent and to buy back. So he waited, the Most High waited, and there was a lull in the historical occurrences, that made it seem that, well, the crucifixion has happened, but what is the real result of it? We were not able to see. And in that time period, Satan, Gadriel, and Esau were busy developing this in their brutality against the Hebrews, against Yasharallah, the 12 tribes. This is what they were developing in all their wars. and brutal subjugation of the tribes, with the breaking up of the land of the habitation in Jerusalem that is prophesied in the book of Luke, chapter 21, that Jerusalem would be trodden down of the Gentiles. Who was that? That's Esau, who want to subvert the birthright into his own possession with the help of this. Get a good look at it, Yasha'Allah, which you were being groomed for in the brutality of the 400 years enslavement. This is the result that Esau fought so hard and brutally to obtain. Now you see it. And so we want to move on and to bring forward the knowledge of who are the sealed ones and what is the number of those sealed. Oh, we're gonna bring it up in due course. But we want to go back a little bit and see the evidence for the French and Haitian revolutions. There were separate events necessary, but were tied together by the priesthood order. The priesthood order came by way of Levi being a part of the 12 tribes and having been brought into slavery, into the enslavement, who was sent to Haiti, because this was the direction that Gabriel, Satan, wanted him to go in to effect the arrangement of the fallen priesthood of Levi, yet into a priest order that was under the command and direction of Esau in the Catholic Church. And so with Levi's knowledge that he gained in the execution of his brethren, Nadab and Abihu, they learned something about the powers or the power of Satan, who was really after them, so after them. So he promoted himself to them in producing the fire to burn up the sacrificial offering of the Most High. And in their lust for power, an alternate power, they, I still have difficulty finding the scripture, even though I know it so well. They, Nadab and Abihu, gave themselves over to opening up the portal and allowing Gabriel to come through and consume the sacrifice of the Most High, and the Most High slew them right away. But out of that experience, Levi continued his course with dabbling into Satanism. Let's put it simple. Even though, as the priest, he had it in the back of his mind to dabble into Satanism. And in due course, in the enslavement processes, you had the French Revolution coming out. This is Esau, because his kingdom was impoverished. And so the French Revolution was Esau's way of gaining attention to correct the imbalance. The word is getting away from me, but it was a matter of finances troubling the kingdom of France at the time. Esau's kingdom was in trouble. And so when they coined the phrase liberty, equality, fraternity, this was to induce a mode of togetherness to fight against the authority of the French government. And what you didn't know was that Levi eased over to the French and asked for permission under the guise of priesthood under the Catholic Church, whereas he was originally a priest of the Most High, who was still in contract, if you will, with the Most High to get the Mashiach into the most set apart place. Levi turned his back on that. And I guess with his memories still fresh on how Nadab and Abihu were able to bring forth fire to consume the sacrifice. This was a thing in the mind of Levi that says he had a connection with power. And so it was a trigger, a contributing factor in his willingness to rebel against the priesthood that was offered to him by the Most High, because he saw the power coming from the other source. And he wanted to have that power too. The power that Levi possessed was greater than what he received from the demonic forces, the satanic forces. But he valued that source of power that was in hiddenness in the officiating of the priesthood. He had this knowledge to himself. The general population of the nation got to understand that there was a problem whereby the Most High slew Nadab and Abihu for this strange fire that they offered. But it was the offering of this strange fire, the accomplishment of having connection with this strange fire, that propelled them to rebel and to rebel against the priesthood. The priesthood need. The need was in the 400 years enslavement processes that was going on. where Levi became a priest in the Catholic Church, the need was still there in the records of the Most High that Levi should assist the Mashiach going into the most set apart place to conduct the priesthood, his priesthood, whereby he would make confession for the nation. And this Levi turned away from. This is what has contributed to what you see in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 concerning what it's called the man of sin and Esau's evil bastard language. He puts it as Antichrist. But this is what Levi came to, partly on account of what he experienced with the strange fire. And so this led him to amalgamate with Esau, whom he had already formed alliance with in the matter of the crucifixion of the Mashiach. And so in the French Revolution, Levi went over to France and offered his assistance to bring the economy under control. And Levi offered the house of Judah as a part of the solution to correcting the imbalance in France's economic posture. Levi offered, and France accepted, since Levi was a subject of his kingdom. Anyhow, and in the Catholic Church, he was an officiating priest who despised the priesthood of the Almighty Yahweh and fully turned himself over to cooperation with Satan, Gabriel, under Esau's supervision. And this is how the two priesthoods came together in the time of what we call the Haitian Revolution. Those two priesthoods came together, forming the alliance to create the slave trade against the Most High and against the 12 tribes with regards and respect to the house of Yahweh. This is how it happened. And now you know that what is called the Haitian Revolution was the diabolical plan of Levi to escape the duty of priesthood that required him to finish the course of Levi's order, that was to present the Mashiach, as Yochanan did. Yochanan, who was a Levite, to present the Mashiach as the Lamb of Yah that take away the sin of the world, as also in the event of the Mashiach ascending into the most set apart place to do the confession, to be a priest unto the Most High, confessing the sins of Yahshua, particularly with regards to the time period that we are in now, because our efforts to keep Torah is continually being harassed by Esau's kingdom needs under the direction of Satan, Gabriel. And therefore, we are in need of the priests, the priesthood, to make intercession unto the Most High for us by the fact of his own sinless life. He's taken it upon himself to offer forgiveness and cleansing in this time of trouble. He's taken it upon himself so that our lack, our inability to perfectly coordinate ourselves according to Torah in the keeping of the feast, the Mashiach takes it upon himself. Our omission of giving perfect attendance or attention to the requirements of Torah. He takes that upon himself as the priest, as our chief high priest in the Shamayim. And so it was Satan's design to break up all of that. This was Esau was attempting to accomplish by reason of the 400 years enslavement of the 12 tribes. And of course, as also Levi committed himself to the cause of Satan by deserting the priesthood so that he would not be in place to properly conduct the Mashiach into the high priesthood. That was to be his last, what's the word I need? His last act in the priesthood, as it would be turned over to the Mashiach to take charge of priesthood, high priesthood, chief priests. This is how the matter was before the Most High in terms of the ministry of Levi, his priesthood, who deserted and turned himself over to Satan to oppose the Most High and the Mashiach. This is what Levi has done. This is what has catapulted him into the position of anti-Mashiach, whom Esau terms in his effort to hide the truth of the matter, he terms Levi's action as that of Antichrist, which Antichrist means being against that white image. That's what it really means. But the correct evidence of Scripture is the name of anti-Messiah that Levi has committed himself to. And wherefore, for nearly 70 years, he tried to make me a sacrifice on the account of Esau and Satan. But our main theme is the Mashiach. Esau's rejection of the continuance of his ministry as priest, even as high priest, until the Mashiach would be installed in his place as the high priest over the household of Abba Yahweh. This was the great commission of wrong done to the Most High. And now you see in our world today, we have a whole movement, I guess I could put it that way, that is directing attention towards what is called the accomplishment of the Levites, of the Haitians, in the Haitian Revolution. The accomplishment as it is viewed as being a triumph of Levi, the Haitians, over the French in the Revolutionary Wars. Whereas all of that matter was an agreed situation. The French and Levi agreed with this. Their two priesthood came together and agreed to do this, to do these wars and have all that bloodshed, to bring forth, to achieve blocking the Mashiach from his high priestly ministry in the Shamayim. This was the work of the revolutions, the revolutionary wars of the French and Haitians, the Levites. Camouflage and subterfuge against the Most High's order. This is what Levi committed. And this is what is going to bring the hot fires of the Mashiach against him. So whoever wants to cover him, as I hear brothers today trying to exalt Levi's so-called revolutionary accomplishment, that was the height of rebellion against the Most High. And those of you who are involved in exaltation for the accomplishment of the Haitian Revolution, you better think again. You're involving yourself in a matter of opposition that's going to bring you destruction. You need to divorce yourself from it if you have any care towards the love of the Most High and the Mashiach. Is my parting word to you. And let me give it to you one more time for you to view. As Esau and the world have attempted to sum up the accomplishment of the 400 years enslavement of Yasha Allah, they wouldn't tell you what it was they were trying to accomplish. But here we have it, because our Father has presented and showed forth the information, the knowledge of what it was, what it is that they were highly motivated to accomplish. And as we have borne the image of the earthly, so also we shall bear the image of the heavenly. Behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called sons of Elohim. Therefore the world knows us not. The world don't know us. But when Mashiach, who is our life, shall appear, we shall be like him. We shall bear his image. Instead of this, that Esau wanted to produce. It has indeed been produced, so much so that we can give it to you, show you what the historical records have produced, but that Esau would not connect for you, that you could see it like this. This is what he wanted to accomplish, to have you bearing this image and being under this rule. The Most High bless you, Yasha Allah. Until next time. Shalom.